For better or for worse, I asked on my Instagram for people to send in a couple of questions. And I would answer them on, well, this coming Friday's podcast. So, without further procrastination, because I'm a man who does not like procrastination. Anybody who knows me will tell you exactly that. Let's get into it. Evelyn. What a great song that is by Entombed from Clandestine. Interestingly enough, I think, doesn't Nicky Anderson just sing on that record? The guy with the plaid shirt in the Stranger Eons video. Johnny, is it Dordovich or something? I think he was just in the video, but I think Nicky Anderson sang on it. I digress. A little death metal bit of trivia there for you. But Evelyn and Tonopoulou, which era do you feel most connected to? Which era? Well, I suppose it would be hard for me to say any other era than the one that I'm living in, because I don't have any experience of any other era, which is a really sort of asshole way of answering your question. If you mean like sort of romantically or emotionally, I don't know. I mean, I suppose what the question maybe is more, succinct or concise to ask is if you would like to live in one era of history, when that would be. And most people would say like ancient Greece, the sort of cradle and birth of democracy and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that would be interesting. I think living in the Middle Ages or the, early Middle Ages or Dark Ages would be pretty grim, I think. And that's what most people, I think, don't realize when they talk about history. The idea that up until a certain moment in the 20th century, life for most poor working class people was pretty grim, but especially 15th, 14th century, it must be pretty dirty, pretty grim, and pretty short. So the one I feel the most connected to, very hard to say. I suppose romantically, if you would ask me, where would you have liked to have been at a certain time, and wouldn't it have been interesting to be in the courts of the Romanovs in Russia around the time of Rasputin, to be a fly on the wall or something, or pick some pivotal moment in history where the great decisions are being made in a room somewhere, on the streets of Sarajevo when Archduke Ferdinand was shot. Or I suppose for me it would be observing some great historical event. Not that we don't observe some ourselves in this moment in time. Anyway, Evelyn. Anna Silencer. What is your favourite book at this stage of your life? At this stage of my life, I very rarely ever read fiction. It's not a great admission, as I think it's still, a noble act to read fiction, but I just don't get my head around it. I get 50 pages in and I go, what is the point of this when I could be reading about the War of the Roses or learning something about history? It's literally gone from my reading diet. But I will pick two books, and they are Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse and The Master and the Margarita by Bulgakov. I think both are, especially for young men moving towards middle age. Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse is a very dark, interesting and great moment of introspection if you read into it a certain way. And The Master and the Margarita, I think, is just maybe my favourite ever fictional book, Russian literature. Both of those I would absolutely recommend. Jarrett Lowe. Have you listened to US black metal band WADA, and would you ever tour with them? Very specific question. I wonder what your agenda is, Jarrett Lowe. Primordial played with WADA. I don't know if that's how you say it. In Italy during the summer, we played at a festival, really cool festival with Paradise Lost and Amorphous. And I think WADA played right before us. And I don't see or have any objections to the idea you present in your sentence, nor am I particularly aware of some reason why I should or shouldn't be either way. Look, I mean, Primordial has toured with Korpiklani. Lovely guys, pagan guys, shamanistic guys from the mountains of Finland. For me, touring with, it's more about maximizing the moment where you take the stage and making whatever gig it is yours, putting across your musical agenda, whatever you want to say, forcefully, and who you play with is within reason is not that important to me. And you get so that's kind of how I feel. I'm not sure what Jarrett is looking for me to say. Grind Your Mind 77. Another Twilight of the Gods album and a shirt. I have some shirts. You can have a shirt. No one wants them. And also, when is your crooner album out? Well, I mean, I'm quite a fan of some of the voice of some of those old crooners. What's that guy who sings "Something Got a Hold of My Heart"? I can't remember his name. He's an amazing voice. Or the Wichita lineman, Glenn Campbell. What a voice. So many of those guys have incredible voices. I could listen to, or Scott Walker, maybe. If I had the bravery in my musical life to somehow reach out into some sort of Scott Walker experimentation, I would be looking back with some happiness right now. So maybe, who knows, maybe at some stage I can do something like that. I mean, who'd be interested? I don't know. Another Twilight of the Gods album. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, myself and Runa. Runa is a very busy man, as you can well imagine, doing Ultimus. And he's always doing, he has at least a few other bands on the go as well. So am I. And Froda and Nick. I don't see any reason why not. The first album, I think, became a little bit of a minor sleeper hit, in the sense that more people talk to me about it now in the last 2 or 3 years than they have done 8 or 9 or 10 years after it came out. I think, to be honest, the Twilight of the Gods album came out on the wrong label. It should have been on a label that's much more associated with straightforward heavy metal. And it was a little bit out of sync with the kind of heavy metal that was very popular at the time. It was a more like 1980s tier Manowar style heavy metal record, when most people wanted new wave British heavy metal style, mustachioed, high cheekbone. I should get some Botox. I don't know, what is Botox? I actually haven't got a clue what it is. You don't inject it into your cheeks, do you? No, I don't know. Anyway, so what am I talking about? Oh yeah, I don't know. Never say never. Would people be more interested in a Twilight of the Gods album? Maybe. I mean, it was designed to be played, in sort of big places in front of heavy metal crowds, not sort of skeptical black metal audiences. But, it is what it is. I'm still proud of it. I still think it's a great album. Brilliant drum sound, courtesy of Gomez. Great, the tone is big. Now, where are we? Peccably doomed. Not impeccably doomed. I'm not sure the opposite of impeccably is peccably, but maybe, and who knows. From the Latin peccatum, I imagine. What genre of music will lead the way for new experimentation now that black metal is wholly done? Wholly done. I see what you've done there, which is what journalists do to politicians sometimes, which is lead the question with your own opinion, expecting me then to agree with it. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. The black metal is wholly done at all. It never will be. It never, just for your information, it never had to progress. It never had to move on from what it was originally. It is what it is, and that's simply how it will be. My views on black metal haven't moved one single iota since 91 or so, and I'm really proud of that. No progression, no nothing, never, ever. But, back to your question. I don't really know what that means. I suppose what will lead the way for it. So I see, again, I'm not a person who really gives a shit about experimentation. If you want to, you want to. I mentioned Scott Walker a minute ago, but I love the Ramones, which I suppose was something new when it came out. I don't really give a shit about things like that. I don't give a shit about reinventing the wheel or not. If you want to be the hamster on the wheel and go round and round and round and play the same 3-4 chords, good for you. Fine, whatever. If you want to take black metal, maybe like where Death Spell Omega went 10 or 15 years ago, good for you also. It's a sort of leading question that I sort of disagree with the fundamental principle of. If you want to experiment, okay. I suppose realistically, because of the atomized nature of modern society, which is encouraging maybe a lot more electronic music. Maybe we're going to see a mixture of, seeing as you mentioned black metal with more electronic stuff, more trip hop, more grime. I don't know. Do those things ever really work? I don't know. I'm sure there is someone out there making those kind of things. Personally, I don't give a shit. I'm still going to listen to Venom black metal in 10 years, or until, maybe the day before I depart this mortal coil, and I'm still going to call it black metal, and I'm still not going to be interested in anyone who disagrees. But if you want some experimentation, be my guest. Jesus Zerivi, was your favorite song you sang on apart from Primordial? In brackets, accuser opposer. Of course, suggesting my answer to me, and I suppose realistically that would be my favorite thing that I have sang on outside of Primordial. Of course, I enjoyed the difference in singing for Dread Sovereign, where it gets to be rougher, a bit more heavy metal with different subject matter. The April Men project I made with my cousin, which I'm really proud of, is a kind of analog synth goth kind of 80s style, and that requires a very different style of singing. You can go and find our cover of Roxy Music, Love is the Drug, and U2, New Year's Day. They're both on YouTube. And with heavy metal, singing over a wall of frequencies and dynamics, as you are with guitar, you have to, project a certain way. Whereas when you're singing against, sort of much more subdued instruments, which aren't as harsh tones, every inflection in your voice, it's much easier to be out of tune. It's much easier to be flat and to be easily noticeable. And because I never use auto-tune, obviously, I never use any of those things to help tart up the voice, whatever the word would be. And so I suppose accuser opposer for other bands, and I've done lots of things. The Me and That Man song I did, Mother Bury Your Sons, I'm very proud of. I think that's a very cool song. In more recent terms. And yeah, accuser opposer. That was special because I went to Sweden, to Marduk, in the studio to record the song, and the train was delayed for hours. Got off the train at like 3 a.m, and myself and Morgan were just sitting in the car, and he goes, "You want to try it now?" And within an hour it was done. So yeah. Okay. Chris Fielding. Who is the greatest TT racer? Well, you know the answer to that, Chris Fielding. Again, a leading question. It would have to be Joey Dunlop. And I'm very into TT racing. No, I'm not. If anybody wants something truly scary to watch, go and actually watch the Isle of Man TT. They do these things like it's a motorbike race, and they have these dash cams filming these guys, and several people usually die every year. And you filming the dash cams that go around the island, it gives me apoplexy thinking about it, let alone even looking at the dash cams. Go and have a look. It's absolutely wild. Yeah, excuse the throat and sinus issues. I'm having a bit of a sinusy day where I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Heart Metal Der Heart. Heart Metal Der Heart. Podcast. Why haven't you been on your podcast, by the way? Live scene development. In a few years, only mega festivals left. What's your take? Yeah, hard to say. This is something we all talk about because, Primordial is going to play a few gigs in Germany in the next few days. And if you look at the gig lists, even for these, they're not even big towns, Herford and Magdeburg. It's not like Berlin or Hamburg or something. And you look at the gig listings they have just for a month, and there's like... some of them are like 12, 13, 14 gigs, at least over 10. At least one every 3 days you could go to. And they're bands with a musical conflict of interest, you could call it, with ourselves. How do people have enough money in a shrinking economy to try and spend on 2 or 3 gigs a week? In Dublin, somehow they manage it, but in other cities... it seems like attendances are falling and dropping down as people are really picking and choosing. And of course, what happens then is the booking agents, local promoters, often to compensate for that dropping in the dropping in attendances, they charge more for tickets, which recently just came to light over these shows that we're talking about, which we as a band have no control or say in, or do not even know. Because to me, nobody should be paying over €40 to see Primordial. You know, you just shouldn't. Unless it's like some, huge 4-hour marathon gig or something like that. God, imagine that. So it's complicated. But I do feel like the festivals are reaching a critical mass of some form or other, because they really are. There's just so many festivals everywhere, and it's expanding and it's expanding, it's expanding. And flights are becoming more expensive, luggage, insurance, everything is exponentially rising. And it feels like so many festivals now, we're going to start to see quite a few of them go to the wall and the whole thing kind of shrink a bit again. But it's really hard to say. What I can say is that for singular club shows, it seems the attendances are down. I mean, let's be honest, for plenty of bands who are 10, 20, 30 years old, it feels like a general shrinking of most things. Whether it's attendances, whether it's streams, whether it's YouTube views, it's all these things, is that for an aging scene, its demographics are most definitely changing and altering. And I think that they've maybe plateaued a couple of years ago. And for newer, younger, different kind of bands, maybe they have growth. So there's a certain, amount of, as a musician, being aware that when you've been here for quite a long time, is that during the last cycle or few chapters of the band, it's about the curation of your legacy. You're not really going to grow. There's no upward mobility. It just kind of is what it is. And that's why, oddly enough, we've kind of decided with Primordial next year to start playing whole albums in full. It was something I kind of resisted doing. But after the last record and seeing what I saw, anyway, not great grammar, but the kind of plateauing of the reaction to the album, you think, okay, we have how many years left? Well, that's actually one of the questions coming up. So I can address that within that question. So let's get to that. Lefterist Kef, a best of 2024 release list coming. Yes, it is coming. Right now, I think Ulcerate, Cutting the Throat of God, is possibly sitting in the top spot, but who knows? Alex K 1990, any new Call from the Grave coming up? Yeah, there is. The vinyls of the particular band I am going to do it are sitting here looking at me, and I've been putting it off, being lazy for doing it for the last while. So I should really do that. You are right. Sturm Dragonbane. That is a fantastic name. Jeff Sturm Dragonbane. When are you coming to Chile? We came to Chile, I'm afraid, Chief, and it was in 2017. Yeah, we're going to come back to South America next year. I think we have something confirmed, which will be announced soon. Now, whether we can play more gigs around it, I don't know. It's somewhere where we need to come back to, most definitely. And do I listen to New Wave of THM? Is that thrash metal? Or some THM, whatever that is. Hi from Rancagua, Chile. Rancagua. I don't know where that is. I'm really sorry. New wave of thrash metal. I don't listen to much new wave of thrash metal, if that's what you mean, I'm afraid. By and large, thrash for me really belongs in the 1980s. It really belongs in a moment, and it's of its time. I don't like barely any of the modern sounds, the clicky, triggered drum sounds, the kind of lack of natural tones. I mean, when I want to hear things that sound like Dimension, Hatros and Pleasure to Kill. When you listen to old thrash metal, as soon as you hear Tom G's feedback, you know it's Tom G. As soon as you hear Possessed, you know that's the tone. Dave Mustaine, James Hetfield. Thrash metal is defined by tone, and I find very few bands have the tone. And I also want dark thrash. I want Carnivore, Coroner, Voivod. I want aggressive, violent, dark stuff. I don't want jokey stuff. I like Vector. That's probably maybe about it. All right. Hear Thick. How serious do you think your concept would reflect in your audience's minds? I mean, it's hard to say. Some people take the band so seriously that they get the logo tattooed across their entire heads. So I've seen so many tattoos of lyrics. I've seen tons of stuff like that. I've got messages from people who go, I played it at a funeral. We played Stolen Years at my friend's funeral. We played this at our marriage. And we played this at our harvest celebrations. So people do take the band incredibly seriously. And then there are people, of course, who just like a good riff and a good chorus and have never read the lyrics or don't know anything about the band, and who just think that Empire Falls is it's a good metal song. We're here for both those people and all points in between, to be honest with you. So you can create your own concept, and it's really up to people then how far or they want to take it or leave it. Mactadio, what bands do you like that deserve more attention? Well, I just mentioned one, Ulcerate, I think is absolutely incredible. I think when it comes to heavy metal, you got Witch Hazel from the UK, deserve an awful lot more attention. I mean, look, if you're in the underground heavy metal, as in you're not here for the mainstream bands, probably everything you listen to deserves more attention, whatever that means, because you're dealing with bands who have a couple of thousand listeners. Whether it's Sverum from Ukraine or today I listened to the new Grand Magus album. Does Grand Magus need more attention? Should Grand Magus be headlining Vakin instead of Sabaton? Of course they should. In a righteous world, they would be. But, they aren't. So, if you're in the underground, probably everything deserves more attention. Or it's just okay being in the underground. Walls of Joshua. See what you've done there. Interesting. What's your favourite Primordial album cover art? Well, it isn't the original of Storm Before Calm, which still haunts me. If you have the original CD or vinyl, it shouldn't look like that at all. The reissue is kind of more what it should look like. The reissue of it is really close to something that I really like. What is my favourite artwork? I like Where Greater Men Have Fallen a lot. I like the idea, the sort of the grave on the front with the man kneeling at the breast of the woman on the cover. To the Nameless Dead, probably doesn't need the little spirally design behind the logo, but the statue, with the flag lowered, I think is vaguely iconic. I like how it ends. It's hard to say. Imrama, of course, done by the great John Fay of Cruachan and Vikings fame. That, for its time, is a brilliant piece of art, which was painted on a big canvas by John. Journey's End, the Stephen O'Malley version, is kind of somber, Gathering Wilderness. They all have their own tone. Hard to say. PSMCL. Favorite South American band? Well, my favorite South American album is INRI by Sarcophago. But my favorite South American band, I mean, look, it's hard to look past Sepultura. I don't go past Arise. My favorite albums are Schizophrenia and Beneath the Remains, Morbid Visions. But as a main body, it's hard for me to really see past Sepultura. And I saw them in 1990, and they were like a force of nature, one of the greatest live bands of that time ever. So, of course, I loved, Volcano and Dorsal Atlantica and Chacal and The Mist and Holocausto, and I mean, there's so many great old, I'm mainly listing Brazilian bands, I suppose, which, would get me into trouble. And then, of course, there's modern bands. Chile has a very good scene. I really like Downfall of Nur, who were from Argentina. Really thought they had something special. There's cool old Colombian bands. There's it's hard to tap into that insane wild Parabellum, for example, that wild old South American energy. Few things are better than INRI by Sarcophago on a huge volume, or the Cogumilo Warfare Noise Sampler. This is one of the best records ever. James Ramondetta, what's the biggest misconception about what it's like to be in Primordial? James, that is a brilliant question, and something that I don't think I've ever been asked. The main misconception is that bands like ourselves make a living from being music, from music, that we are professional musicians, and that we are, able to sit around thinking about what the next album is. But we aren't. That's only for a very small percentage of bands, whether you're Behemoth maybe or Rotting Christ because you tour relentlessly, or Amon Amarth or something. But 98.94% of bands or more are not professional and are working jobs just like everybody is doing, or doing what everybody is doing. And then the band is on the side. So that's the biggest misconception. I suppose also the backstage, whatever that means, since time immemorial in rock and roll, the biggest misconception is that it's a fun place to be, when in actuality it's a small tiny room with 5 middle-aged men sweating and farting and stinking, trying to change into their too small stage clothes and arguing over a set list. It's not glamorous, it's not particularly rock and roll, it's not particularly exciting, it's not particularly sexy or interesting. That's probably the biggest misconception. A lot of your time is spent sitting in a van, traveling for hours and hours and hours. A lot of it is spent, just doing that. But, I wouldn't trade it for the entire world. So, but there you go. That's the 2 biggest misconceptions. Ramon Sura, Trump won. Will the world be a better place? Yeah, I expected more questions when I asked this about the whole American election. Will the world be a better place? No, I don't think so. I don't think the world was going to be a better place no matter who won, to be honest. But certainly not with this result. I think we can probably be pretty sure of that. Nikiforos D asks a very pertinent question. How many years left do you think you have in a band? Yeah, this is very interesting and something you have to make peace with. There's a moment where you realize that the main body of your career is in the rearview mirror, and not just of your career, but of your life. And realistically, at a certain age, you've lived the main body, or all of your youth, at the very least. And, you are looking back over your career. And really, from here on in, it's about curating that. It's about doing it justice. I don't want to be a band who, when people see live, they go, yeah, they're still pretty good, but you should have seen them in 2005 or 2008. I don't want a band to become a parody of where we were, with less energy and less intensity and less meaning. And it just, whoever seemed like you're going through the motions, I would hope then I would have the common sense to quit. I'm not sure I will have, because I'm a pretty dumb motherfucker. But I think the moment, we all come to that moment where we realize that you're in the last few chapters. And so therefore you must just try and savor it and enjoy it. And if somebody says to me, I've changed my tune a bit. If somebody says hey, you want to play the whole of the Gathering Wilderness next year because it's the 20th anniversary? You know what? Yeah, I think I do. I think I do want to sing Failure's Burden and Cities Carved in Stone one last time, or one last turn around the wheel. Why not? It's we made the records, so we can do, I think we can do those things, so why not? But it's complicated, because, and this is the same for anybody in any walk of life, even just whatever your normal job is, or your relationship to, maybe education, or you have creativity in different disciplines. Eventually, your body will call time on it. So, okay. Rory Keena. Rory. There's a fine Irish name, Rory. Will I be at the Winterfell gig? That's asking me where I am going to be on a specific date. Complicated. On stage, perhaps. Well, maybe so. I would have liked to have maybe done a gig or two. I sing on the new Winterfell album, if nobody knows. Really, enjoyable experience. Lovely guys. And the idea is at some stage to hopefully get up on the stage and sing with them. Yeah, so why not? But no is the answer. I won't be there, in case you're looking for me. December Soul, 93. Down to December Souls. What a record that is. Still remember the first time hearing it. Also Catatonia's Je veux Elohim Meth. God is Dead, I think it means. Is one of the best demos. Palace of Frost. What was the other song? Without God. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. One of the best demos from '92. And the first Catatonia album, the production is a bit wild, big poundy drums, courtesy of Dan Swanner, but it's absolutely brilliant record. I might go and listen to it after this very chat. Mike 3 Nye. Mike's 3 Nye. How does it feel to not have a shit album? Oh, flattery will get you everywhere, sir. Well, thank you very much for saying so. Well, I'd like to think that we've kept a reasonably high standard throughout the career of the band, which is difficult once you've made 10 records to have kept a reasonably high standard. Of course, some people have different albums they prefer, so there's a few dips, there's a few movements up and down. That can't be helped. But I like to think when you listen to How It Ends, it still sounds like a vital band full of energy and passion and intent. Now, it might be not be your favourite album. Maybe you were from a certain generation that likes Journey's End or Spirit the Earth the Flame or To the Nameless Dead or whatever. But the fact that we have different albums that people consider their favourite, I think, is a really good sign. So, it feels good, Mike. It feels good. Even if, that's a contentious sentence. 99 Hollis. What do you think of Ireland's popular rock bands, and why didn't metal have a similar story? It's not even just metal, it's all subcultures, post-1980s subcultures. There's a whole lot of things missing from Irish music, whether it's an Irish, whether it's electronic music or punk or, newer British heavy metal or thrash metal or death metal or industrial music, whatever you want to say. Where we have the Virgin Prunes, we have a few other bands, but, where's the Irish Discharge? Where's the Irish Venom? Where's the Irish thrash metal stuff? Where's the hatred? Where's the aggression? Where's the Satan? Where is the extremity of a reaction against an oppressive state, against migration, against poverty? Everything is there. Religious intolerance. Everything is there within a 1980s Ireland for there to be an Irish band with nails and studs and inverted crosses who really meant it, not just parody bullshit, or for there to be sort of dark wave stuff. I mean, I know that another label called Strange Fruit, I think, released an electronic sampler a few years ago, which had some okay songs on it, and as I said, Virgin Prunes here and there. But by and large, where is it? Where is the Irish Sarcophago? I know, right? Where's the Irish Parabellum? Where's the Irish Tormentor? Where's the Irish whatever you want? Take it from the 80s, or the Irish Psychic TV, or the Irish White House, or I just don't know that those things. I don't think that. Where's the Irish Sisters? What's going on here where there's no Misfits or Venom or I have no idea. Were we just a nation of pissheads who just couldn't get our shit together? And it's not to say there weren't bands. Of course there were, but look there's a terrible compilation called Green Metal if you want to go and search for it. And it's a compilation of Irish metal bands from the 80s, and they're still like, maybe the spectre of Irish traditional music just looms too large over. That was an Irish trad song. I was doing a little bit of, must be banjo I'm doing. There's no evil in it. There's no aggression. There's no Satan, which it should have. There's no hatred. There's no all the best ingredients for heavy metal. There's nothing. It's really light. Sort of vaguely pathetic sounding bands. So where was all the things that you can find 1980s D-beat Finnish punk backing bands. You can find bands behind the Iron Curtain who had to build their own instruments. Where are those bands in Ireland? I don't know. Very interesting question. And if you mean now, like why don't the metal bands have the same status as the Fontaines or something else like this? Well, I mean, who would that be, and were we ever? The most popular or the most successful counterculture, if you want to know, since the early 1990s is bands like ourselves, Kurokon, Abaddon Incarnate, Morning Beloved, bands who've been going for decades, who've toured the world and played in Moscow to Mexico and whatever else. But it's hard to say. And many assume black metal is one sound and image. Well, they're wrong. And what are your original sounds of choice? Well, I mean, look, southern bands, Mystifier doesn't sound like Immortal. Blasphemy doesn't sound like Rotting Christ, doesn't sound like Samael, doesn't sound like Master's Hammer, doesn't sound like Dark Throne. I do think that something to do with, culture and region and geography does have a feeling. It's a reason why northern bands can sound icy cold. It sounds almost ridiculous to say, but it's true. It's a reason why Primordial, I think, has this earth and sodden, a windswept, kind of like stormy sort of sound. It's to do with our geography. It's to do with where we grew up, the earth around us. It's to do with Irish nature. It's to do with it's to do with our psyche as well. Why does it have this melancholic sort of feel to it? As opposed to the way bands from Norway sound, for example. It just, I think there's something to it. And also black metal is not one sound and image. Clearly. Chris, what is the best manger? A way in or preta? Wow, this is an attempt at Partridge by Chris, who had a starring role earlier. The best manger, mangy manger, away in a manger or prêt à manger. I think I'm not sure. Does manger have whatever that French little thing above the e? Not sure this really works, Chris. You may have to go back to your people and work for, maybe crowd work or the stage work, that particular joke. The Devil's Emissary. When Trump wins, will you adopt me? Listen, if you really were the Devil's Emissary, you wouldn't need me to adopt you. Or maybe Trump is the Devil's Emissary. Who knows? Well, my friends, that was all of the questions I got from Instagram. A lot of fun. Some really good questions in there. And let's do it again sometime. Okay. This will be an episode of Agitators Anonymous podcast, all that kind of jazz. Until next time, Nanu, Planet Satan, over and out.